Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wowhead Weekly number 231. For those of you guys who tend to follow the show on a weekly basis, might wonder why we're live on a Monday. Instead of having a temporary reason for that, we are actually now officially changing the show day to Mondays. Hopefully, it doesn't change things too much for you guys, maybe even a change for the better. We feel that Monday is a better fit, being the beginning of the week and no risks of any build being put in for us to have to delay the show or similar. So, Wowwood Weekly Mondays it is from now on, unless something happens, pops up in the temporary moments. But yeah, today we have a few things to talk about. We have the PvP vendors, the corruption, which is now on the vendor as well, and we have some customization options, some additional ones that have been added, and also some armor to have a look at. But before we go into that, let me introduce myself. I am Annie, or also known as Annie Fuchsia, and my lovely co-host is, as usual, Perculia.
Hey everyone, I'm Perk. I'm the site director for Wowhead, and Annie did not mention, but she is an amazing full-time streamer. If you missed her job description.
Thank you.
Um, and yeah, it is, we were switching to Mondays. It is Memorial Day here, but we skipped last week, and I just figured we have a few hot topics, so we might as well start off. If you're have a day off in the US, welcome to the show. And just trying to get with the new schedule. We think Mondays are good because there's no Ian interviews in or bills or other things that could make us have to reschedule. So without further ado, we can jump into the topics. We've got a lot of like fashion to discuss, which is surprisingly controversial. And then we also have some vendors, like some PvP vendors that people mostly like, and corruption vendors that are different that are getting a more negative response. And we may also have a cat. Let me see if I can get him. Come on, Bright Paw. One sec.
Oh.
Right paw. Yes. What's a good boy? Okay. So we're gonna put him on my lap, so he hopefully doesn't distract us during the show, or he can just steal the show.
Like, what
Same
are
thing.
you doing?
There we go. No, you can't eat this
Aww.
paw. Okay. Now we have our third guest. We have our third host is
Aww, now
Bright
he's
Paw.
comfortable. It was
Yeah.
a flying kitty indeed.
Yes.
Oh, so cute.
So
I,
yeah.
I, I find it so adorable when cats look up at their owner. I don't know, something about
Yes.
that. So cute. But yes.
He's like, I like it when the human looks down at their owner.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yes.
My bad. He is, of course, the owner, not
Yes.
you. True.
But yeah, why don't we, now that our introductions are out of the way,
Mm-hmm.
why don't we jump into the first topic, which is shoulder transmog in Shadowlands.
Yeah.
So this is not testable yet on the alpha, but there's a global string effectively being like, transmogrify one shoulder in Shadowlands, which sounds very exciting. The exact text is transmog each shoulder separately.
Yes.
So you can get some pretty neat silhouettes with that. We don't know if that means that you can have two models or if you're just going to, hide
Hide
one
one, show
shoulder.
one. Mm-hmm.
But we haven't had anything like that before.
No.
So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. It's
Great paw. No.
it's not something that we can test now, but having something like that does sound really cool. Being able to potentially hide one shoulder, show the other one, maybe have one model here, another model here. I don't know, but asymmetry can be very strange, but also very cool in many ways. So I think it's awesome if that's given as an option.
Cataclysm, that was, I think, the first time they did asymmetrical armor, and there were those quest sets, leather, I think, that had like one shoulder and the other was bare, and people loved those, even though they were
Mm.
just, random questing
Mm-hmm.
armor.
Imagine
And
if you can eventually hide one glove or one shoe. It's like,
that would
whoops,
be,
I dropped my
yeah.
shoe. uh,
So But yeah, this is the first time we've seen something asymmetrical with this. Of course, in BFA, they just flat out let you hide armor slots, but now in Shadowlands, it's getting even more advanced, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we can't try this yet on the Shadowlands Alpha, but because it's in the global strings, usually that's like a first step before we, actually see it make it to the actual game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Blizzard, I mean, the shoulders could get even bigger with this option because if they know that people can hide one shoulder, they might do something totally epic and over the top, knowing that people might want one of them for a silhouette but not two.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty excited to see that happen. I also know like demon hunters or a lot of lightly armored leather classes may want the look of one shoulder to be lightly armored, or
Especially
if
with the
it's like
body painting now, that's sort of, or body markings, which are now part of the customization options for a lot of the races. It makes it even more interesting to potentially just have one shoulder showing, nothing on the side, but instead you see some markings of some sort.
yeah, especially with all not just tattoos, but with all like the necklaces and
Yeah.
some body jewelry that we're going to cover
Mm-hmm.
very shortly. There keeps being more and more reasons why you would want to maybe have part of an exposed torso to show off other customization options underneath.
Mm-hmm.
And one shoulder I think could also tie in with like a cloak idea really well. Like, like Arthas's cloak, for example, how he's got like that one big shoulder and then the one small shoulder, and the one big shoulder is sort of, tied to his cloak that billows behind him. So
Mm-hmm.
you could turn a one shoulder option into a interesting cloak model. Like remember with Warfronts, they had that plate set and they were making it seem like you would have the one big shoulder and it was going to attach to, the tattered cloak behind you, and it didn't turn out that way,
No,
but people
yeah,
were really hype about it. So
I
maybe with
remember.
this they can do stuff like that now.
Mm-hmm. Now with the option of hiding one. Body jewelry, yes, yes. We have some
Yes.
body jewelry to also show you guys today. And we have shown some body jewelry in the past as well, like on female blood elves, for example, and they do look really good.
Yeah, that's actually our next show topic, how we got some more polished blood elf customization options.
Mm-hmm.
And when we showed the jewelry last time, we weren't sure if it was for blood elves or not because it wasn't like explicitly labeled as an option, but now it is, and you can actually try it out in the dressing room.
Mm-hmm.
So if we highlight the female options first, we got new necklaces, hairstyles, earrings, ear size, and eye color, which is strangely, you wouldn't think eye color is controversial, but it really is. So why don't we highlight the hairstyles and the other things first?
I'm actually
I've,
going through the necklaces right now on the
oh
stream.
yeah, so the necklaces are cool because when we saw that with humans, we're like, oh yeah, humans have the most customization. But now blood elves have necklaces too. And I like how there's
Mm-hmm.
not just gold options, but also silver, because, some armor sets have silver in them as well.
For sure. Mm-hmm. And
I love the
the
Phoenix one.
yes, yeah, me too. There it is. It's
Yeah.
so pretty. And even the silvery one with the green gem is the green gem is very very big for just a necklace. And I can imagine being able to, this one is the one I was talking about, being able to
Yeah.
potentially match this with some armor that might also have those type of green shaded gems on them.
Yeah, I think that would go really well with like some of the Sunwell cleansing sets, more of like the Fell addiction, like the Burning Crusade red and green armor
Mm-hmm.
set. I think
Mm-hmm.
that could fit that aesthetic pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And the gold sets more, traditional elf.
Yeah.
Um, do we want to talk about the ear size at all? I'm pretty excited
Yeah,
because I think if the blood elves are getting ear size, that means that the night elves should be able to get ear size too.
that's true.
Uh,
That's a good
I
point.
remember one of the developers, I think a while back, I don't know if it was a joke, but he was saying that the night elves could even customize their eyebrow size. So I
Oh,
think that would be
yeah, I
pretty
remember.
interesting.
That would be really
Um,
cool, actually. Because they do have
yeah.
eyebrows that really stick out, so it would make sense
Hmm.
to be able to customize them. Imagine if you
Yeah.
had eyebrows like this one right now. You would probably, consider dyeing them, maybe consider curling them, or like you can do so much to it. So it would make sense if they also decided to just change it
Yeah.
somewhat.
The earrings as well. Blood Elves already had a decent range of earrings. We have a cat that's also back. But I really like with the new options, the final one they added, which has it's sort of like an ear cuff that has the phoenix at the edge of it. Uh, because I
Mm.
think that ties in well to the necklace option that also has the phoenix. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's a nice attention to detail, making some of the necklaces match the earring options.
Mm-hmm.
And as for the hairstyle, so I love the tiara option,
Yes, me
but
too. There it is.
I wish you could customize the crown because it's gold all the time.
Good point, actually. Oh, I have
Especially,
something showing behind. Let me fix that. There we go.
yeah.
Whoops, I removed the wrong one. No, no, this is the correct one. Okay, hairstyles. Here we go. No,
Yeah.
but that's a very good point. The tiara being gold does limit, and it's also specifically gold with, I think, green gems in it. So
Right.
that does limit things. If you were given a color option, that could help a lot. And the same goes with this one with the ponytail because the hairband is sort of red, and that can be also limiting in terms of how fitting it would be with your armor.
Yeah, I feel like the ponytail is a great addition, but at least in the model viewer, it's not fully there yet. The physics are a little lacking, so, as you're doing the blood elf dance, your ponytail is still like perfectly in place and not swaying, which looks a little fake.
Oh,
But
yeah.
these options are still not available for players to, use on the alpha.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they're still being tweaked. But I
Yeah.
mean, overall, I think it's a good addition. Just,
Mm-hmm.
looking a little more realistic would be good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like we can hold off the eye color debate until we go over male blood elves, and then we could talk about eyes because that's,
Yeah.
relevant to all of them.
To both. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that sounds like a good idea. Well, we just looked at hairstyle for females, so why don't we look
Yeah.
at some hairstyles for male blood elves?
Yeah.
Here. Not quite as
So,
many, but still a few of them to note.
yeah, I like how they also get a crown
Yes.
with one of the options.
Mm-hmm.
So that's neat. And then they also have a similar like short spiky haircut as the female blood elves.
Mm-hmm.
And then they've kind of got the 10 things going on hairstyle with like bangs and long hair and braids. So
Yeah.
the variety is still fun.
Mm-hmm. And the eyebrows sticking out as usual,
Yep.
clipping into
As for
the
the
hair.
facial hair, we've got a few beards, including one beard that's got like a little ponytail action going on. So that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
neat and unexpected.
Yep.
And they've also got the ear treatment that the female blood elves have as well.
Mm-hmm.
And now we can talk about the oh yeah, did you have a slide of the body jewelry or not? I'm in the show
For the male
notes.
one?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
So this is not in our dressing room, but the body jewelry sort of it can be put on the male blood elves, and we don't know if this is going to be like the human males could in theory wear the makeup, but Blizzard didn't enable that option. But they look kind of good wearing the body jewelry.
So, are these taken from females, or what do you mean with that they weren't really meant to be on males?
So currently the the way it's coded, like
Mm-hmm.
there's this data and we can place it on like a male blood elf, but when it comes time for like the dressing room or like that extra step of customization, Blizzard only enable them on the female blood elf.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
it's basically like I'm trying to find a good parallel. Like suppose there was a heritage armor set and it looks horrible on one race.
Mm-hmm.
But then it looks good on another race. Like
Mm-hmm.
this jewelry looks it's like designed to fit on the male blood elf. It doesn't look totally horrible and broken.
Mm-hmm.
Like like it even sits differently. It's like they had the idea of how would this look on a male torso.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like an afterthought, but for whatever reason they didn't enable it
Enable it.
in the
Yeah.
dressing room.
Yeah. Like
But
in a way, like
you know,
it's like as if it's not been flagged for it.
Right, but I think that, clearly they have it. It looks, it fits on them. It doesn't look terrible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I think it would be interesting considering how like ornate and like how many jeweled options the Blood Elves have already. I mean, we've seen with the
Mm-hmm.
hairstyle, they have like these crowns and these, braids. So, I think it would be interesting to see it in a future build, but that's not up to me. That is Blizzard.
Yep, that
Yeah.
is up to Blizzard indeed.
It was also super popular when we shared it on Twitter, so people were kind of hype about it as well.
Mm-hmm.
No Bright Paw, no
Bipod is
Rubhead
back.
against my. Yes. He's like, I like these options. I like shiny things. Jewelry is good.
Yep. And for the
So,
male blood elf, we also
yeah.
have some ear options, just like the
Yeah.
female one. And I believe that's the last option or last customization that we wanted to highlight, except for the eyes, which would be the
Yeah,
next
so
topic then.
right. Also, just so people, as a refresher, these were the options added this past week. Like last month, there were a bunch more options like hair color, skin tone,
Mm-hmm.
a few other things. And actually, some of them aren't in the dressing room yet, but some of these are. So just don't forget about those options from last month. They should be coming at some point too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so the eye color.
Yes.
So, I wish this wasn't so much controversy with this, but it is. Um, so the TLDR is a month ago we data mined blue eyes for blood elves. People were concerned that the blue eyes looked like high elves. High elves are traditionally with the Alliance. Shouldn't the void elves eventually get the blue eyes instead? Ian
Mm-hmm.
then confirmed in an interview that, blood elves, no one is getting these blue eyed high elf options. And then a different shade of blue eyes was added in this build, and there were a bunch of eye colors. Like there were yellow eyes, green eyes, blue eyes, red eyes, purple eyes, black eyes. And while the purple, red, and black eyes were flagged as options not available to players, the blue eyes were marked as options available to players and were automatically enabled in Wowhead's dressing room as player options,
Mm-hmm.
which then reopened the debate of, I thought Blizzard said, we weren't getting blue eyes. What does this mean? Was it deliberate? Was it an oversight? Uh, and I don't think it was an oversight because they also added blue eyes for Void Elves after saying that the allied races weren't going to get any
Any customization.
more. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it sort of has opened a whole other can of worms, and I really wish they could do what they did in Warlords and do those blogs before the data mining started, where they explain their aesthetic concept for a class revamp, a race revamp.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because like people are mad. They're like, oh, why are you highlighting this? And it's like, well, they're in the dressing room. We're gonna show the option that's available, and we don't know if it's intended or not because it's not that exact high elf,
Shade.
royal
Yeah.
blue.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different shade of blue.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, there's just been so much back and forth on it, and I feel that if this was an accident with how controversial the topic is, I feel like, I don't know, like someone should be triple checking anything related to these controversial options. Like, oh, great job, you flagged the purple as unavailable. Make sure that the blue is tagged properly.
Yep.
Um, and also this is in the past, sometimes when we data mine like the human options, the humans have also been available to test in the alpha,
Mm-hmm.
but the blood elves, you can't currently make them in the alpha. Like Blizzard sort of takes a few classes off the alpha as they're tweaking the customization options. So we can't actually make a blood elf and be like, oh yeah, this blue thing we data mined, it's actually not available to players. We're just going by all the data, and everything points to it being a player option. This, different shade of blue.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just very confusing. But like if this wasn't such a controversial option, like suppose it was a shade of green eye, we would be like, this is obviously an option. Like it's it has all the data pointing it to it being a player option. But because like the blue eyes are so fraught,
Yep.
we have to I don't know. It just complicates it, and I wish people could focus on like all like the art and the details that are going in, and not be worried if like the interview contradicts the data and like different shades of blue. I feel like it could be cleared up by Blizzard really easily.
So what do you think? Do you think because the shade is different enough that it's fine, or do you think it would have to be changed? How important do you think it is?
I feel like because the shade is different enough, and they also added it to Void Elves, they'll be like, yeah, everyone can have, this shade of blue. You still can't RP a high elf, but like blue is a common eye color. Of course, here's a blue shade if you want blue eyes, like it's not even like they always keep saying they want you to feel like you can feel like your character is represented in Shadowlands, that your persona is, and the Blood Elves look more human than other races, and blue eyes is an actual, eye color more so than green and yellow. So it makes sense why they'd want to, add. If they have things like the necklaces for humans and Blood Elves, I can see why they also want like a normal sort of non-fantasy blue for this race as well. um but I wish they could just clarify, like, oh, we said it wasn't the high elf shade of blue, but blue is a common color. Sure, everyone can have this different shade of blue. And also be good to clarify on the Void Elf side, because if they're saying that allied races aren't the focus, it would be good for them to clarify no allied race customization versus, oh, we'll do a few, tasteful updates here and there.
Yeah.
Because now people are like, go ahead.
I was gonna ask if Void Elves are getting the same customizations in
Yeah,
terms
yeah.
of eye colors, like all of them.
Yep.
Okay.
Not all of them, but the 3 turquoise tints,
Yeah.
they are getting them as well. And you'll be able to customize the eye colors separately from the face.
Okay. Yep.
Gotcha. And all that's in the dressing room too. So it doesn't seem like it's a mistake if they, like, a lot of the allied races have the skin is baked into the face shape, is baked into the eyes, like they don't have all that all those differences yet. But with the Void Elves, they restructure them so the eye is different than the skin, is different than the face. So it doesn't seem like an accident if they took all that time to break down the Void Elves similar to the Blood Elves. But we can't actually test this on the alpha yet. We're just going by data, and everything points towards Void Elves and Blood Elves are getting these turquoise, not high elf blue eyes. Which, is a bigger question. Wouldn't high elves be an interesting allied race or faction? Especially because the high elves are in the Void Elf starting zone, so wouldn't it make sense to, I don't know,
like
have them be a separate race, or like
yeah.
a Void Elf skin? Kind of like the dwarves can have the tattoos from all the races to show different clans they belong to. So by that logic, obviously, like, a Wildhammer versus a Bronzebeard dwarf has a very different background, but by that logic, couldn't a Void Elf have like a high elf skin to be like, yeah, they work together, like they're from the same background, and yeah, sure, one's into magic and one's not, but they're both with the Alliance. So I don't know. I think with how they handled the dwarf clans, with the customization options, they could do this with Void Elves and High Elves. But yeah, more communication about this, please, Blizz.
Yes, indeed. Would love to hear more, so we don't have to
Yeah
continue speculating.
Like, there's so many options and things that people could be giving feedback on, and I feel like this debate, which could be cleared up very quickly, is just sort of overshadowing more feedback about like clipping issues, or how things look laid over armor. So like, I know Ian said that you couldn't have the high elf blue eyes, but obviously when you're going to add blue eyes to 2 races, it's going to make people think.
Yep.
So
yeah, that is true as well.
So yeah,
I accidentally showed the post a quick spoiler of something, which I guess now would be the next topic, so maybe it's not so bad.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Unless you wanted to add anything else to those customization options on Blood Elves?
No, we can talk about the other Horde race that got customization options.
Okay. Well, in that case, we got some customization options for undeads. We talked about this slightly last week about how, or maybe the week before, about how the bones on the body of an undead may be customizable. And here we have some some preview pictures of how that may look like in 3 stages.
Yeah. So I believe in the last show when we discussed it, Blizzard made it so you had hide bone and show bones option, and you could change your arm, body, and leg bones separately. And they kind of revamped that this build to where you can't customize your body parts individually,
Mm-hmm.
but instead of going between show and hide bones, you have, hide bones completely, kind of have weird decaying stuff on your joints like how China handles it, and then showing bones totally exposed. So you've got like three versions of decay.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think? Like, do you like this in place of, I want to hide my arm bones but show my leg bones? Are you indifferent to it?
I mean, I always believe that the more the more customization, the better, right? So if there were more options and different levels of how much bone you're showing, I think that would generally be better. I don't think less is better in any way. But having said that, I think it's cool that this is an option in the first place. And having 3 stages does feel better than just having two, like show or don't show. So having that extra
Mhm.
step in the middle, I think is a great start to have it feel a little bit more personalized. But I can see how, yeah, maybe some people want to have one arm and one leg like that, and then one arm and one leg that looks normal, just to symbolize something. Or I can imagine maybe in RP servers you want to have that only on your arm because maybe you went through something which is then symbolized or shown in the arm, I guess, injury, where your where your bones are
Right. Or it's
exposed.
like, oh, like I started to decay, so like my torso has bones, but I was, resurrected before I totally decayed, so
Yeah,
my,
for example. Mm-hmm.
hands and feet don't have the bones showing. Because
Mm-hmm.
I think that like sometimes it's really cool to see the bones sticking out of your cloak,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not as cool to see bones, destroying your boot armor.
Yeah, yeah. For
So
example. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point. Mentioning armor, maybe depending on what kind of armor you like to wear, that answer would be different too. Maybe certain armor would look better with more parts shown or hidden. Wait, that actually makes me wonder. I guess this is something that you have to decide at the beginning. I mean, I guess it doesn't really make sense to have 4 areas where bones are showing and then suddenly none of them are, and then the next second they're showing again because it fits your transmog. So I guess it's something like you have to decide at first and then you have to
No,
stick
it's
with it.
the barber shop. You can change that, I
Really?
believe. Yeah.
How
But yeah,
realistic?
I think it would be interesting if you could combine both, even though that would might be like a ton of customization. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be neat if you could at least customize your arms and legs separately, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it is really cool to see the bones poking through
Yeah,
gloves.
yeah.
But it just doesn't feel as cool when you have bones popping through your feet.
Yep.
So
That's
mixing and
also true.
matching
Mm-hmm.
is good.
So the
Maybe
game.
Blizzard is like, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say like maybe Blizzard is trying out two different options to see the feedback on it, to see which direction people want to
Yeah,
go
that's also a good
with
point.
it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have any strong opinions, you can leave them on the forums, and they'll check it out.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask if it's the case, then, just confirming what you said earlier, that the middle model here is the one that China uses.
I think so, or it's at least it's very
Similar.
similar.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because you don't really see bones in the same sense, but you do see
Right.
that the skin is ripped in those areas.
Yeah. Um, and then finally, just so people know, um, with all these data updates, several more options were automatically added to the dressing room. This includes most, but not all, of the bled up options. So, like the eye color and the hairstyles and the body jewelry are in, but
Mm-hmm.
the skin tones and male facial hair, and new hair colors, I believe, are not in.
Mm-hmm.
And the undead decay is in the dressing room. And I've seen a
Oh.
lot of confusion about this on the site, but just so people know, we configured the dressing room to support Shadowlands data, and once that's done, it automatically pulls in all the things that are coded properly on Blizzard's end for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I know people are like, you know, the Tauren were around last week and you added the Blood Elves that were more recent and you haven't touched the Tauren yet, why aren't you prioritizing the Tauren or the dwarves? And we don't prioritize anything. Like update all the data, and whatever is configured in the proper manner gets
Mm-hmm.
added to the dressing room automatically. So Blizzard has the Blood Elf options more complete in
Yep.
the data, and it's able to be just pulled into the dressing room. So, we're not there being like, oh, like the Taurens got less retweets than the Blood Elves. Let's manually add the Blood Elves to the tool. It's all this,
Yeah.
automatic process. And we, the way it's configured, we couldn't add these things manually even if we wanted to. So if next week, 5 races have updates, the tool will just update with 5 races when our data push is done.
Yeah.
Or if there's 0 races, then sadly we can't do anything. But it's not like, oh, it's 5 p.m. and the torrent aren't, finished yet. We're gonna just ignore them for the next 4 days because people are confused by how the dressing room works. So we hope more races are in.
Mm-hmm.
But we're sort of doing what Blizzard provides in the data.
In the middle of this, let's also quickly show you guys the female version of this. So
Yeah,
just like before, we have the I think what they call the fresh look and the slightly um,
modeled.
modeled, and then the last
Yeah.
one with a lot more bones. So that there you go, get to see the
Yep, the
female version.
options are called fresh, modeled, and bony.
Mm-hmm.
And if you miss the past options, Undead have some new skin tones. They have new hair colors, including pink hair. They have new eye colors, including pink eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and some new hairstyles as well.
Mm-hmm. They do indeed. And I think that's it for customization options for the different races. Unless I missed
Yeah,
something? I think that's it.
yeah, that's it.
Yes, pink hair
We may
undead.
have
We do not
yeah,
discriminate.
pink hair undead with pink eyes actually looks
Yes.
pretty cute, especially with something flamboyant like the mohawk.
Uh huh.
We may have Stevon is doing some digging. We may have another customization themed
Oh,
post later today.
okay.
We data mined this string, uh, being like new option is like bear form and cat form, and some people
Mm.
were interpreting it as like transmogging the form separately, but some other data was hinting that it could just be the bear form looking tattoos we data mined last month. Um,
Mm.
like, oh, like if you're, a druid, you can have the bear form tattoo on you or the cat form tattoo. So we're just sort of presenting. We might do some like boring data analysis later on today as to what that could mean or couldn't mean. But we
How
don't have
dare
that
you
article
call
out
that
quite yet.
boring? But yeah, no, I get
Like
what you
I know a
mean.
lot of people are
Yeah.
just like TLDR, like, am I getting a new form or am I getting a tattoo? And like with
No,
big
no,
things
you're
like that, I think it's
absolutely
really
right.
important to like actually explain the evidence, even if not everyone's gonna read it. It's just
Mm-hmm.
good so we don't say something that could be misinterpreted and
Mm-hmm.
have you be like, oh, like they data mined wrong. So
Mm-hmm.
Stefan is working on that, I think.
Nice, nice. Random shout out to
So
Stevan, doing a great job
yep.
with all the data mining
Thank you,
streams.
Stefan.
Yes, thank you,
Yep.
Stevan, for what you do. Oh, he's here.
Um
Nice. Thanks, he says.
yep.
But yeah, if you guys tend to be on Twitch every now and again and like to watch some data mining things, you can catch Stevan doing them on and off anytime, any day. Just follow the
Yep.
channel for the notifications so you
Yeah.
can be there. Um, but yeah, next
So
up is
armor sets.
armor. Yeah.
Yeah, talking about data mining mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
The male Ardenweald set was not everyone's favorite. It was kind of bug themed and a little plain next to the others, and we've data mined something that's like Mal Ardenweald Covenant Set 2. And it looks way
Mm-hmm.
better than the other set. And we can show it off on the screen. It comes in
Mm-hmm.
the four tints, got these really over the top shoulders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those
People love
shoulders are
this.
actually really cool.
Yeah, I think that it's not totally done because like the glows don't 100% line up with two of them, but at least in the light blue and kind of dark blue brown, you can see that they line up pretty decently. Um,
Oh, so you think the blue effect on the shoulders might actually be a different color for the different
yeah,
tints? Gotcha.
yeah. Because if you look at the like the second tint with the lighter blue, it is slightly different.
Yeah, you're right. I see it now.
Also, there's like a kilt version of this as well.
Yeah, I
Uh,
was gonna say. So if you're into the sort of robe look, you can have the kilt, or if you prefer leggings or pants, then you can wear that. There it
yeah.
is. Now that's showing.
If you hear any noise, that's my cat whacking his tail right next to the microphone.
No, we actually can't hear it. It's okay.
Oh, don't tell him that. He's gonna be like, I will move my tail even harder.
I feel like this green one is really cool. Actually, I can imagine hunters liking it. This one too, actually, especially if those shoulder parts goes from blue to something that fits it a little bit better.
Yeah, I
It feels
think
like
the
they
one
camouflage
that's
well in nature.
yeah, the one with the kilt that has the red bits in the front and the kind of gold leaves feels very autumnal, which I think is neat. Like you could have one for each season. Like the light blue one is kind of winter, the red
Yeah, that's true.
one is
Actually.
autumn.
Mm-hmm.
Like the pastel blue one is spring, and the green
Mm-hmm.
could be summer.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, oh, that'd be cute. Like that's like the blossoming ancient pet
Oh
that changes
yeah,
with the
it's like match
seasons.
the pet. That's
Yeah.
true.
So what do you think is going on with these two sets? Like, do we think that the original set is scrapped, or do we think that there could be like a second tier of Covenant sets? Like, with the artifact weapons, you could
Mm-hmm.
get the four tins for the basic appearance, and then if you did more elaborate things in a future patch, you got the, more elaborate version of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've only seen two sets for male Ardenweald, so
There's
it's
no other two sets anywhere else, right?
no. I mean, maybe next build will add more, but right now it's just two for male Ardenweald.
I find it hard to believe that they would just scrap an armor set. But I don't know. Is there any chance one of them could just be, yeah, like questing gear, maybe?
So I like this idea that in the Mists of Tyrna Scythe Dungeon, there's some characters that are kind of themed around like bugs and corruption, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe they could move the first set as like a cosmetic drop from one of the bosses there, kind of like how in Shrine of the Storms, you could get the Tide Sage armor from one of the bosses.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that could be a decent idea. I think that this is a little too elaborate for questing armor, and we've already data mined a bunch of armor called like Ouroboros questing that kind of has like a Titan but kind of simple look to it. So I don't think it would be tied to questing, but you always have to wonder. I mean, we have data mined the Druce set that feels like a subsection of Ardenweald,
Mm-hmm.
because the Druce are tied to that zone, so maybe this is the armor that the first plane set is going to be like the armor tied to the kind of Druce like stone and rope weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's a mystery. I mean, Ardenweald, as of the time of recording the show, is still closed on the alpha, so we don't really know what's going on with that.
Has there been any, not news, but any hints on when it would be opened?
No, just that yeah, we're not sure. I mean, there's Maldraxxus and Ardenweald that are still closed,
Mm-hmm.
and we finally got the capital city of Oribos open that we'll talk
Oh,
about in
yeah.
a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I remember when the alpha first came out, they're like, oh, first is Bastion, then Revendreth, and we're hoping to get Oribos by the end of April. And Oribos, appeared at the end of May.
Mm-hmm.
So we've never really heard them talk about Ardenweald and Maldraxxus. And if Oribos was, late by a few weeks,
Mm-hmm.
they're probably not thinking about releasing the next zone ASAP. But we could be wrong. They finally enabled Death Knights on Torghast, so they're coming along, but they haven't talked about Ardenweald at all yet.
Yeah,
I
I
imagine
guess
they
we'll
would want
see.
to delay it because if that's the zone that talks about, Tyrande and with the data mining hints, Bwonsamdi might make an appearance there, and like, Ysera and the Emerald Dream, I feel like it could have the most emotional impact. With a lot of these zones, we're seeing characters that are cool, but we haven't really interacted with before, like Sire and Athreus or the Accuser. But if
Yeah.
Ardenweald has, the characters from recent expansions doing things, it could have the most hype. So maybe they want to save that to the end. I'm not sure though.
I think that makes sense, wanting to wait a little bit with zones that have a higher impact on the lore itself, because we do know
Yeah.
that everything is being tested and words are out and more things are sort of spoiled. So, yeah, it's understandable how they have to make a decision based on that, too. Maybe we can even draw the conclusion based on the fact that those are the last to be opened, that they will have the most important aspects
Yeah,
to.
like we know they announced at BlizzCon that, Draka, the mother of Thrall, is in Maldraxxus. So I feel like that's gonna be pretty high impact. Um, because, you know, it's Thrall, and he just came back and he had these, big cinematics featuring him.
Yep.
So I feel like that could also be an interesting reunion if he makes it through them all successfully.
Yeah, that's actually going to be really interesting. It's going to be
So
fun to
speaking of
see.
armor sets, we have another set. This isn't 100% done yet though. It is the leather maw rate set, and I think we showed it last week, but it wasn't totally complete. And it's still not complete, but they added the shoulders, and that's a pretty big deal.
Yep.
So
Here it is.
it still needs a belt, it still needs a helm, but I think the shoulders add a lot, especially because when you turn sideways, it's got like a skull face on it with these glowing eyes and a nose.
Yeah, they look really cool, actually. I remember thinking that this set looks good even without the extra pieces, and that
Yeah.
you may not. Or wait, no, that wasn't this set actually. I'm thinking of something else. I'm thinking of that set with the cape or the cloak. I forgot which set
The
that
cloth
was.
set?
Was it cloth? It was like a
Was
sort
it
of
the Venthyr
Kultiran looking.
tombstone set?
I don't remember. I'm gonna have to go back into the notes to
Okay.
remember that. But I do remember talking about this one too, because we mentioned the spikes on the hands/arms, the bracers,
Yeah.
and it's nice to see that the shoulders are matching those perfectly.
Yeah, and I'm curious what the face will be like. I wonder if the face is going to be something like the shoulder sides, where it's like a skull that you're wearing. I think that could pull the outfit together. And it's so elaborate even before we have the, helm and belt are pretty big pieces that we're still missing.
Indeed, I think the belt will probably also have some kind of spikes.
Yeah, safe to say.
Yeah, and then the head, I
Spikes
guess we'll
everywhere.
see. Yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
But I do think that the mail set is like the plate set is awesome, and I feel like the mail set is still going to end up better than the leather set. Because yeah, I think that's the set we were discussing last week, that the mail set just looked so good. We were so surprised by it. It looked awesome.
Yeah. Wait,
Here.
how did that one look? I feel like I'm forgetting how these looked like.
Oh no, mail Mari. Let me link it. Let's see.
I don't want to forget. I want to see.
Let's see, mail Mari. Okay, I put a link in the notes. So the male set, just for people curious, had like the horns that were neon and glowing, and like the tentacles coming out of the shoulders. And it had like a
Yes.
chainmail vibe to it, so it was clearly male, but it wasn't just the usual.
I
You know,
remember. Yes.
we're wearing leather with a skull on our shoulder because we're hunters.
Here it is. There, I was able to show it off. Yeah, I remember now. We surprised everyone with the set actually. We
Yeah.
even asked you guys what set you guys think it is, and a lot of
Yep.
people said plates actually.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember. Cool. Okay, nice refreshing of memory. And yeah, I see here
So
the moss set that we had, which was uh, the leather one, which wasn't showing that much. Um, okay. How did I do this? Let's see. I can't see the source of this. There we go.
what source? Okay.
I think I actually messed up the background here. So Perk and I are now sitting in the dark. Wait, let me see if I can get our
Oh
backgrounds
no.
back.
Let's blame the cats. All three of them
Yeah, it
are
wasn't
working
me.
together.
Yes, it was actually the cat. True.
Luna and Maya and Brightpaw all working together.
Yes. Okay, let's take a look. Add image. I accidentally, for some reason, the OBS took some time to add the image as a source. So when I tried to delete it, it deleted our background. Let's see. Should be here and here. Here. Okay. There we go. And then move it to the bottom. Actually, there we go. And I have to add a chroma filter too. Because now we look like this.
Ah!
We look very, very green right now.
Oh no. Time to Photoshop us.
Yeah. Photoshopping live on stream.
Yep.
Chroma key. Okay. Done. And way, we're back. We're back.
Hey.
Yeah, that's what happens when you accidentally delete a background. Okay. We're back now.
Yep.
Yeah, for some reason my OBS is being a little bit slow. So when I'm adding something new, it doesn't load. And then when you click delete, it deletes something completely different. But here we are. We're back. All right. So where were we?
We finished discussing the mall leather set. We're showing off the mall mail, how that's actually still might be better than mall leather. And I think next on the notes, we were going to talk about Oribos because that opened up for testing, and it's this big Shatrath style circle with very kind of like Ironforge too, that has different halls where you do different, central city hub stuff in.
Mm-hmm. Even Undercity is a little bit like that.
Yeah.
Let's
so
get
just
the map
do a
going.
rundown.
There we go.
Yeah, got a map, and I'll talk a little bit about what's in each thing. We've got the Hall of Shapes, which is the profession place, which you can't really do anything in because professions aren't enabled. We got the Hall of Holding, which has the bank and the weekly vault, and keep in mind that instead of having a bunch of like weekly vendors, you're just gonna have like the vault, and then you can pick what type of reward you want.
Mm-hmm.
The Ideala has the inn. The Hall of Curiosities right now seems kind of empty, maybe some vendors there. The Enclave has Covenant ambassadors and PvP vendors. The Ring of Fates lets you teleport up to the portal room. The Ring of Transference is the portal room. And the upper floor is blocked off, but you can kind of like mind vision, use a totem to see the Arbiter up there, which is, kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
And it seems very easy to navigate. And there's lots of interesting, like Titan themed details there, and like the Oribos, like the image of the two snakes, sort of like one encircling the other. Lots of metallic accents, lots of bronze that we're seeing. So, keep in mind, Ian was saying that, there's like a pantheon of death parallel going on between Azeroth's pantheon and then the Shadowlands characters like the Jailer and the Arbiter. So it's interesting, like when you think, to me, this doesn't scream death. but
No.
there must be something really deliberate with it to have a ton of throwbacks to Titan architecture. Because when I
Mm-hmm.
think death, I think like things that are like spooky or ghosts. But this is very, it feels very like timeless and like, mythological and ancient, which
Mm-hmm.
is not a bad thing. I think it's just,
Yeah, it
I
looks
think
really
it's like
pretty.
really important visually. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There must be thoughts behind that as well. Like we're in the Shadowlands, and this is apparently going to be one of our main hubs, right?
This is like
The
the
main,
hub. This is like the
the
capital
hub.
city
Yeah.
place. Yeah.
So picking something like this, which looks a little bit or reminds of Titans, it is very interesting. We're in the Dead Lands, and this is where we're hanging out. So it's gonna be interesting to see why that is.
Yeah, and there's some details I think you check in a video we made that if you look at the portal room, it seems like the forces swirling around each portal are all getting like sucked into the other portals, like everything is getting muddled together,
Mm-hmm.
which might have some significance because
Mm-hmm.
with the anima flow being disrupted, a lot of the Shadowlands is in chaos.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but right now I think it's a very interesting city, and it's also again it's nice to see. It's kind of cool how it looks so different than the other zones because we have these. Everything is like a fantasy, high fantasy in Shadowlands, and it's all different, so you can appreciate the different styles. Like in BFA, it's like Tiergard sound is cool, and the capital city is beautiful, but it was all kind of the same and like very brown. So it's cool to be like, oh, we travel up a beam of light and then we see this Titan arbiter at the top.
Mm-hmm.
It's really fun how over the top it is. Sometimes you need a break from the more like realistic fantasy to have something sort of wild and creative.
I also think, wait, let me bring the map back.
Yeah,
I also think that Horde players will be very, very happy to finally have a city again where everything is, somewhat close to each other. You don't need a flight path to go from point A to point B in the same city. Something that I
very
notice
true.
every time I log my Horde alts, and it's like, oh, I wanna, I don't know, I wanna check out my mission table, or I wanna queue for an island, or I wanna open my weekly chest, and it's like, really, it's that far away, and especially before we had flying, you do not want to
Right.
walk all the way there. Like you just straight go to the
Yeah,
flight
like
point.
Desire lore is just like ah.
Mm-hmm.
So
And then the PvP area is like even further away. It's actually crazy how far
yeah.
everything is. So
Speaking of
now
PvP,
you guys will experience the alliance experience of BFA of having everything really close to each other. And you were saying,
speaking of PvP,
mm-hmm.
we should talk about something we found in Oribos, which
Mm-hmm.
is the PvP vendors as well as a special item upgrade vendor. There are three NPCs. One sells unrated gear,
Mm-hmm.
another sells rated gear, and the final is an NPC they didn't really hype up, who gives you the option to upgrade an item. And we can't totally try this out, but it takes Shadowlands PvP honor currency.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and the message that the vendor has is you can upgrade many equipable items to increase their item level. The currency required to upgrade an item varies depending on the item's source. So,
Yeah.
is that, like, does that, can you, that doesn't just sound like PvP, that sounds like you do something with raid gear and then you have like a raid currency and you can upgrade your raid gear. Uh,
Yeah, it's very interesting that it doesn't mention PvP specifically. But this NPC was next to the other PvP vendors, right?
right. And so far the gear we can see, the gear that the PvP vendors sell has in their tooltips, it says the rank, like, rank 1, rank 2. So,
Mm-hmm.
so far only that gear seems to have that like upgrade system
Mm-hmm.
set up. It's very curious also, thinking about it, if Blizzard is like, oh, no Titan forging, you just get something of a certain item level, uh, it would be interesting if there's this other component now where it's like, yeah, everything starts at the same item level, but if you grind out currency, you can keep pushing that item level up.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. So right now, for people who are familiar with PvP, you will know that you can actually get those tokens or warlord trophies, for example, in order to up the item level of your PvP gear, which then is scaled based on what rating you have currently in PvP. So, for example, to get the max item level for 75 upgrade token, you need to be 2.4k rated. So maybe this is an idea that they're taking further and continue doing, but instead of having these tokens, maybe they'll have a specific NPC that does it for you. It's interesting to
Yeah.
see whether these ranks is based on how strong these are, or if certain armor might only be purchasable if you have a certain rank in PvP, because that's how it was in the old days, right?
Yeah. So based on the currency we data mined, there's this currency called Shadowlands PvP armor, and the description is used to purchase unrated PvP equipment or upgrade rated and unrated PvP equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that makes us think that that's obviously the PvP currency. And I'm not sure if I'm looking at our currency database,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't see anything similar to it's not I don't see any like Shadowlands raid currency, but that would be interesting if someone is like if it works on all sorts of gear, someone would be like, oh, now I have to this trinket at the base level is not very good, but if I, go Arcano Crystal style and upgrade it a billion times, it's super OP.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting if Blizzard could highlight the upgrade section more, because we knew the PvP vendors were coming, but I don't think we knew about the upgrade part. And based on the wording, it's unclear if that's just for PvP
Mm-hmm.
or like all items in WoW.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what did it say? You can upgrade many equipable items. So many equipable items. It's like, what is
Yeah,
many?
that doesn't that doesn't just sound like, I mean, if it was PvP limited, you'd think they would be like, oh, you can upgrade PvP items as opposed to like many, like many
Yeah.
to me is the like PvP is very specialized in my mind,
Uh huh.
and many sounds very world
Mm-hmm.
quest, emissaries, lots of,
Yeah, it sounds
casual
like it's
things.
probably more sources of it.
Yeah.
But I wonder why they would put it with a PvP vendor then. Because something else, which is the way that the upgrade system in PvP
Upgrade
works
pod.
today, is that if you have an upgrade token, it only works for that season. So if I have an
Right.
upgrade token from last season, I can't use it on this season's gear. So maybe this is just filler words to then later be like, yeah, X season gear or something. But I do think in general that having upgrade token or upgrade system is great. That's one of the things that I think is better in PvP today than
Hmm.
PvE, because if you get a really good item but the item level is too low, you can work to get an upgrade for that piece, especially pieces that are maybe potentially a little bit more rare to farm, maybe specific specific stats that you want, secondary stats on like an offhand or a main hand, which might be hard to farm, and then you're able to use the tokens on that instead. Is really, really convenient and nice. And it takes time. It's not like you can farm a lot of trophies and get all your gear upgraded. So it does put you in a spot where you have to make a decision to put it on an item that's actually worthwhile. And I think that could be an interesting addition to PvE as well. Not a thing where like you upgrade a piece of gear every week, but in the long run, I think that could be nice.
Yeah, you don't want whatever it is to have an RNG component, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, so
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, why don't we talk about another vendor? Final big show topic. Another
Yeah.
vendor which
A
has not
live
been met with
vendor.
as much hype, that actually has a lot of RNG and uneven methods of acquiring the currency. Uh,
Yeah.
as I'm sure everyone knows, you can now buy corruptions from Mother, and it changes every
Way.
3 days with
Oh
the reset.
no.
And there's only 6 available at once, and we don't know what they are in
No.
advance. And if you purchased all your rank 3 essences, you were not earning echoes, so you were behind other people that
No.
yeah. So it's the TLDR sounds a lot cooler than the fine print.
Oh,
Um
and also,
yeah.
if you, like me, happened to look at your essences on your alt and be like, these essences look ugly. Like, I'm missing so many. These are green. These are blue rarity. You know what? I have so many of these stupid echoes, anyways. Might as well just upgrade all my essences to epic because that looks cool. I did that, and now my alts are sitting with full epic essences and only like 1k extra echoes left. And I'm just like,
Yep.
okay, I did not need those essences. I only did it from a
Yeah.
completionist point of view on an alt,
Right.
and now I lost. Pretty sad. Um, if you were one of those people who had alts and did not spend your echoes, especially if it's an alt that you played a lot, congratulations. You probably started the season with 10k, perhaps 20k echoes, maybe even 30k. I've heard some people go around with. I think on one of my alts where I did not care about rank 3 essences, I had about 10, 15k. On my main, I had 0 because my main had all essences unlocked, and that's where my alts were getting the essences from, right? Because I didn't get
Yeah,
any.
and that's a pretty big deal because when you look at the costs of them, some of them are, 15 could buy you a few of them. I
Yeah.
mean, some of the rank 3 ones are 15, but you could some of them are not, some of them are cheaper, and that's just nice for presence of mind to be like, "Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
can just buy one or two
Mm-hmm.
off the bat."
Yep. Yep.
So,
Unlucky
they
for a
also
lot
didn't
of
tell
us
us.
on our mains, we started with 0, which means that
Yeah,
we probably have to
they
grind a
also
lot.
didn't really they also like released like a sample list of costs beforehand, so people didn't really know what they were in advance or like how much they had to stock up, and it wildly varies. Like the vendors from the 22nd to the 25th, the most expensive one was Ineffable Truth 2, which was 6,750,
Mm-hmm.
and some were 3,000. So it's it can vary, and but like in the blog that Blizzard gave example, they had some that were costing. Nope, right, Paul. I'm looking at this baby. Let me look at the cost. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to uh find where the post is. Um, some are so some are even more expensive, so you can't really plan in advance. And especially if you're in the US, you don't know what corruptions are coming next. So we don't know if it's rotating where it's going to go through all of them before showing up again, or if one could show up like 2 cycles in a row. And that
Mm-hmm.
really affects things. Like if your best in slot corruption is on sale and there's only a few days, you're going to be like, well, I have to go grind this now or else it's going to, go
Mm-hmm.
away. And like you were saying, you had, a family gathering to do and you were feeling bad that you weren't taking advantage of
Yeah.
uh, grinding for this corruption you wanted to buy.
Yeah, because I want to spam grinding to. So the current one, which is interesting, is the versatility one,
Mm-hmm.
the 12% versatility, so rank 3. And yesterday I made a tweet how I am spending time with family, and it kind of sucks to read your timeline or hearing from friends that they're spamming like Mythic Plus or PvP or anything, Visions, to get those echoes really fast because they cost 5k each and they want to get as many as possible before the rotation is over. If you miss that, you have to wait probably a month or more for that corruption to come back. And I feel like it doesn't feel right that we're sort of suddenly thrown into that position where we only have a couple days and where we might have other plans. I think it would be different. Actually, I was going to ask you because I thought it was completely random which essences come up. But is there a set list? Do we know when to expect
No,
which one?
we don't know what's next. The only thing that's a little weird, I wonder if Blizzard would publish this, is that so, you know, when it goes up for NA,
Mm-hmm.
NA has it swap a day before EU,
Yeah.
because it's Tuesday versus Wednesday reset.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a total surprise to NA, but at least on EU, you might be like, okay, 24 hours, heads up, maybe I'll spend like more time playing WoW this day, to be
Mm-hmm.
prepared. So there's like a little bit of
Yeah.
prep
So
time for
one
EU
extra
that
day.
NA doesn't
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
So if they could like release the full schedule, I think that could help. But it's still weird because like some of these corruptions, I don't know, I keep calling them essences. Some of these corruptions are like really good for certain specs. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
feels bad if, like one DPS is, getting their perfect corruption week 1 and you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I hope mine shows up and it's week 4 and I can't, min-max to the same extent."
Yep. It's I'm assuming after one whole rotation, maybe it'll be the same order again afterwards, or maybe it's
Yeah,
completely
but
random. Maybe we get the same one next
with
week.
with
I don't know.
like
Have they
6
commented?
essence,
Yeah.
we don't know. With 6 corruptions, and there's a lot of corruptions. You're definitely looking at several weeks before it goes through the rotation.
Mm.
So,
I just feel like it's such an
there's a lot
unnecessary
going
thing
on.
now when the expansion is almost over. It's like expansion is only here for a few months, and then we'll see our corruption like max once a month, and for a 2-3 day window. Like, what's
Mm-hmm.
the point? What's the
Yeah,
point of
it's
putting
just
something in such a short? I would understand if this system was there from the very beginning. Um, but when it's
right.
like this and it's only a few months left and I have to specifically like be there for those 2-3 days when the corruption that I want is up, just feels so unnecessary.
Yeah, it's just like, we're at the end of the expansion. And if you're going with the vendor route, can we just
Put them all there.
put them all on the vendor.
Yeah.
Like what's the harm done? And I also think that, yeah, to a casual player, maybe, oh no, my this alt has 10,000 echoes while this main that worked hard to get everything doesn't. What's the big deal? Like you'll grind out the 10k eventually, but it's more the principle of it. Like it just doesn't feel good to be
Mhm.
someone that all the rank 3 essences
Mhm.
early and then
Mhm.
you feel like you have this deficit, especially when you're probably just like, oh God, like finally I can just buy these thing and be done. It's like, oh no, now you have to, rush to regrind stuff
Mhm.
and before your, corruption goes away.
Mhm.
So I mean, the PvP vendors seem to be better thought out than this corruption stuff. And I mean, I hope they see the different reactions to it and be like, the PvP vendor seems to be getting healthier feedback. Let's do more like this and not, rotating things.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like the only positive that I can think is that it means not everyone will be able to buy everything they need immediately and then everyone becomes OP suddenly. But in that case, maybe we should instead have a limit of how many you can buy a week or something. Um,
Right. Well, it's also like if you have like I know some warlocks really liked the corruptions available a few days ago. So it's like, well, if you had all these echoes stocked up, you could just buy all your really awesome warlock corruptions and then be done.
yeah.
So is it also not good to have, like one spec being like, oh yeah, corruption, I'm done, while other specs are like, oh, we don't have our stuff, we have to wait
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
indefinitely.
And I just saw a comment in the chat. I got my Master Corruption on my Fire Mage, and I had no idea these are on rotation. Lol. That's another thing too. What if you're not someone who follows things very intensely? Having a 2-3 day window per month, potentially longer, where you can buy the corruption, which is the best for you. And what if you have no idea?
Something else
It seems
is,
very casual, unfriendly, actually.
yeah, the way it was presented was a little weird because, Blizzard has made news posts on their front page about things like, like the Shadowlands preview Ouroboros, weekly bonus event World Quest, Arena World Championship. But they even have the recent post they have is 4K digital backgrounds, Legion mounts, pets, and more. But I don't see anything about the corruption changes in the news. So that seems
Hmm.
very like yes, they made forum posts, and that's
Mm-hmm.
where, more hardcore users are, but you'd think if they're making posts on like Legion mounts to collect in your BFA downtime, that they'd also make a post being like, hey, this corruption system we wrote about in January in the news is kind of changed up.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very good point actually that was brought up now. That people who were not aware of the system are punished even more than those who are. Those who
Yeah,
are aware
and
are
like
punished, and those who aren't aware are even more punished.
yeah, like I'm looking at this and I'm seeing them talk about, the Winds of Wisdom buff extended, impressive influence, reputation buff, and it's weird that they're talking about those, but then they're not talking about this corruption change at all, which was touted as, being equally big, like, oh, the reputation is going away and replacing it is a max level thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, it seems like maybe this was like a last minute thing. Like they looked at feedback from the reputation buff and were like, hey, actually, we want to do more max level gearing things. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that this exists versus not existing.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely seems odd not to have a news post on this,
Mm-hmm.
especially because it's on such a short rotation.
Mm-hmm. Or at least put all of the different ranks of that specific corruption in one go. That would speed up the rotation a little bit more. And also, again, casual players being punished because it doesn't necessarily say on the corruption what rank it is. Like, I use an add on, I think, or maybe it does say.
Yeah, it's all like, versatile 12, and you're just like, okay, is that one, two, or three? Like,
Yeah,
it's like, just tell me what it is.
like I have an add-on for that. Somebody who doesn't know would be like, "Oh, is this the best versatility one? Or is this rank 3? Is this rank 2? Is it rank 1?" Like, "Oh, the corruption is only 20. This could be a rank 1 or 2 in that case. Look, because my infinite stars is is corruption 75." So I think making it hard, like it kind of forces people to be outside the game to know what the hell is even going on, and that doesn't feel
Yeah,
right this far into the expansion.
like on Wowhead, for example, we started up these posts announcing which were on sale, and then also highlighting what our writers recommend, what specs really want a certain corruption rank.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them is like not intuitive, like, Ineffable Truth 1 is sometimes better than Ineffable Truth
Yeah.
rank 2. So, if you're a really casual player, you might not be aware of that. So
Yeah, I guess
yeah,
that part, not knowing which one
yeah,
is worth, which one is more corruption efficient, can be argued
yeah.
to be a min maxing thing, and then casual
Right.
players shouldn't maybe be
Mm-hmm.
able to figure that out. But I feel like knowing if something is the highest rank should at this point, like, I don't think they should put one Versa amplifier corruption and just expect people to think that's the best one or that's the only one. Instead, if versatility is up, it should just be all three.
Yeah, especially because, some alts are like, okay, like Masterful 3 is great and Masterful 1 is not so great, but I don't know when Masterful 3 is going to be on the rotation, so it's better than,
Mm-hmm.
not so great ones that I
Mm-hmm.
have. To me, it just like further draws out and complicates the process. And it's like, we've been doing this since January. Just maybe it's time just to simplify it. We had a good, we had a few months of RNG and, weirdness and surprises. Maybe
Yeah.
let's just, move into that phase like Legion where artifacts are super powerful and we were just, doing crazy damage with it. Maybe let's just move into that phase of the expansion.
Mm-hmm.
And, not try to further complicate corruption. 8.3 has already had a pretty long shelf life.
Mm-hmm.
Just, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like they made the cloak easier to get, and it's like they made the cloak easier, but they keep complicating
Yeah, like
corruption. So
why do we still have complications? Like it's really nice that we
yeah,
finally have a vendor, but why add complications to it? Or like somebody actually mentioned just now in chat as well, make 3 or 4 available at all the ranks and maybe change them daily, just so that you get through them faster. Having such a slow, what's the word?
rotation.
Slow rotation of them, it just
Yeah,
extends the time that it takes to get through them all. And that's not fun.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sort of reminded of how, Destiny had Xur, and I remember when he had that gun on sale, people lost their minds and it was like a huge deal and
Mm-hmm.
everyone was waiting for it. But to me that was still different because it wasn't like I felt like everyone was on like an equal footing. It's not like, oh well, this that people got lucky during raid and they have this weapon while the rest of us don't, and it wasn't like, oh, only one spec wants this. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if they're trying to replicate that hype, like, oh, the vendor just went up with this, you know gushing wound is available, let's celebrate today. But I don't
Yeah.
think that works so well in WoW. I
No.
think that works better in Destiny.
Yeah. Like, I guess what they could do is, like, make the corruption vendor kind of rare. Not always available. But when it is, it should have everything. I don't know, because I don't
Yeah,
think it's very
I
exciting.
don't know.
It would be different if it was a currency like, I don't know, gold or something, which we always have the same of. But when it's
Hmm.
a situation
But
of,
you have to
oh, I want
farm
to buy
for it.
this, I have to farm, so I have to grind,
Yeah,
and it's
I think
in a
that's what adds the
short,
stress.
yeah, it's in a short window of like days, like 2 3 days. So for example, I
Hmm.
couldn't farm on my Sunday because my sister's
Hmm.
birthday was on that day, and we had planned for me to be there the whole day. I took the day off streaming for that,
Hmm.
and then meanwhile I'm like, shit, I just missed one day of farming corruptions, and now I'm gonna be behind everyone else for a month because
Yeah.
I missed to buy the extra 2 or 3 that I may have been able to farm that day.
Yeah, or it's not. Another example is like Animal Crossing, where it's like, oh, the $1 million crown might be in the shop, or things rotate on a daily basis. But if you have enough turnips stocked up, you can just buy it. It's not like you need to grind out a special, currency to
Yeah.
buy the
Mm-hmm.
super rare item in the game. You just have the currency saved up.
Mm-hmm. I think it's fine for
So
the corruptions which will be available later because at that point,
mhm.
most people have farmed echoes passively over time. So people
Yeah,
will probably, so in a month or so, I guess this is not really a problem. At that point, most people can probably afford whatever they want. It just
it would
feels
still be
really
good if
unfair
Blizzard
at the
made a
beginning.
post on it.
That's true
Like,
too.
I mean, if this system is going to be in place, and like, a casual player has no idea what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that is why
Yeah.
Blizzard did this. They're like, because it is a good system in the long run, but it's just
Yeah.
so punishable or so punished feeling at the beginning.
Maybe they should have like one of those little like breadcrumb quest, or things that pop up when you log in after a break, being like, "Mother wants to talk to you." Just because I feel like a lot of people that even playing casual as opposed to just like logging on to get a chance at that Mogu assault
Mm-hmm.
mount, you might not be just hanging out and visiting Mother in the course of your
Mm-hmm.
daily activities. Like if you're just farming raids and transmog, you may not really be talking to her. So you could be actually be playing WoW and not aware that she was changing, like that
Yeah.
person in chat who was like, oh, I had no idea they were changing.
Yeah. 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 It's true. Because they might have heard as a corruption vendor, but then they didn't hear about the rotations. And also,
Yeah.
speaking of people who may not know, I did hear one story of somebody who bought a corruption way too expensive after it was nerfed. If you were watching
Mm.
our show last week, or not last week, the week before with Towley, we actually mentioned to you guys and warned you if you have BOEs with corruptions, you should probably sell them because
Mhm.
we are suspecting a new corruption system for people to catch up. And we told you to sell your BOEs, so I hope you did. Otherwise, you probably lost a
Yeah.
lot of gold.
Yeah. Also, a gushing wound is still going to be good, but it's receiving a nerf
Yeah,
as of this reset.
yeah,
So gushing wound has not been on sale yet, but just keep that in mind if you're like if that changes anything for you.
yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, if you're watching this and you haven't kept up with all the news, gushing wounds is being nerfed. It'll probably still be good, but I think they're now balancing around the fact that people can have full gushing wounds, which was very unusual before. So it is getting nerfed.
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
So I think that's about it for show
I think
topics.
so too. Mm-hmm.
Kind of a quiet day here because it is a U.S. holiday. And the build kind of came out super late on a Thursday, so I don't know if we'll even get an upcoming a build this week or
Mm-hmm.
what's going on with it. But we had a lot to discuss between the corruption vendor and these blood elf and undead options. So, it's like whatever, it's a holiday, let's just do a
Mm-hmm.
show. Maybe more people are off work and catching us for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So, if that's you, hi, thanks for tuning in.
And also, we thought it's a great time to start our shows on Mondays. So
Yeah.
it's instead of like something huge happening on Wednesday and wanting to do a show this week, we at least were able to talk about all the things that happened so far, and then we continue the show next week Monday on a regular basis.
Yeah, even like with last week, the show, the build was on a Thursday and it was late, so if we did the show at a regular time,
Yeah.
like we would have just had the build right after and have been like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, we're talking about all this stuff no one cares about.
Mm-hmm.
Or even
Yep.
when they're on like late on Wednesdays, sometimes I'll be, working, like the build will hit like 1 p.m. and I'll be
Mm-hmm.
wrapping it up at like 9 p.m. Then it's like, oh, I gotta do these show notes, but we're not really sure what these things are. And then it's, like
Yep.
you just need to like recharge, and it's nice to look at the trends on the site for a few days and see what
Mm-hmm.
people are talking about, and then tailor the show around those discussion topics, as opposed to being exhausted and you're just like, I'm just listing everything I did again today. I want this day to
Yeah.
be over. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And
yeah.
we even temporarily changed the show day to Monday twice when the Shadowlands alpha came up, because that
Yeah.
happened on a Thursday. So
Mm-hmm.
we do feel like Monday is a better fit. I see
Yeah.
Lock4 in chat saying I like the new schedule, and Vandraren that
Awesome.
says Monday's a perfect non-raid day and I can finally watch you live. Yeah, feel free to give
Awesome.
us feedback if you like
Yeah.
Mondays or if you liked Thursdays better. It's always nice to hear what you guys think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, we are happy to swap to this day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that about wraps it up. Just
Indeed.
recap what's new on the site. Check out the dressing room. We have a new novel article up on cosmology.
Mm-hmm.
And we've also been highlighting a lot of like fan art or like unusual achievements in game. So if you know of any that you think you'd like us to highlight, you can always email feedback, whether someone is like soloing a boss in a funny way or
Mm-hmm.
they are doing like a woodworking table themed around WoW. A lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, if they're like quarantined at home, they're just finding stuff like that fun to read. So we've been getting good feedback and trying to highlight more of that stuff, because yeah, we've
Mm-hmm.
gotten some questions being like, hey, this is cool, and like there's a lot of it all of a sudden on Wowhead, and we're like, yeah, well, when you guys are reading this more than the actual alpha coverage, then
Yep.
you obviously like this. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think it's really nice
um,
to read those kind of off-topic things, like cool things, creative things that people spend time on these quarantine days.
Bright Paw,
And
you're coming
Brightpa's here
back.
to say goodbye to everyone as well. I think it's time
Yes,
for the
he
high five, and he
is.
knows.
Who's a good boy? You are a good boy. Oh,
Oh,
you want to do the high five too? Is that why your paw is
oh
up?
yes. Time for the high five.
Yes. What a baby.
Can you choose your shoulder pants separately when the update comes out? If you're talking about the shoulder thing that we talked about, where we had seen a string of shoulder potentially being hideable, like only one, no, that's not currently being in the game.
This is a benefit to longer hair. Your cat is can
Oh,
play with it. Bright Paw, I'm not a cat toy. I am your mother. Okay.
one thing
Well,
I'm missing on the front page of Wowhead is this week/day important hints for achievement pets mounts. That's all. Hmm.
hmm. You mean like what mounts are good to farm at the reset, or like achievements for rotating things, or something
Mm-hmm.
else?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, do you mean like, oh, by the way, this rare is up right now. You should farm it for the mount, or do you mean like, oh, random note, this mount exists. You may have forgotten about it from 3 years
Yeah,
ago.
like do you want us to highlight, like, oh, the Mogu assault's up, get your Cloud Serpent type thing?
One
Oh,
special
Bright
thing.
Paw.
Yeah. So
Ow,
maybe
ow,
maybe
ow,
like,
ow, 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 ow,
oh,
ow, ow.
maybe like what you said then, when it's a
Yeah.
special event, and something is available that it's worth farming.
Yeah, I think we keep meaning to hide the Mogu assault, and then we just like always forget. We're like, oh, Xantia and Lasso is getting traffic. We should have covered this, guys. Um, But yeah, maybe we can start working the Mogu assaults back into things. Like we do highlight when the squirt menagerie lines up with the pet battle bonus
Oh
event,
yeah,
or
yeah.
when like
Mm-hmm.
the Darkman Fair overlaps with the World Quest event.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, we may not be able to highlight, everything, but we could probably work like the Mogu
Mm-hmm.
assaults
Mm-hmm.
into things again.
Today/this week is the world boss that dropped this mount. Loved it, thank you. I got it. What world boss drops mount? Yeah, yeah, that could be an interesting one too. I'm assuming he's talking about the Volden one.
Yeah, we try to like bump that article whenever it's up.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've also highlighted like the Spirit of Eshiro when that's up in the
Mm-hmm.
archaeology rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one
so
too.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, always nice with some feedback. I do know that Wowhead is already highlighting a lot of things like that, but always good to know what feels like it's missing. So,
yeah,
oh, he
appreciate
says
the
you
feedback.
did set on front page. That's the reason I got it. Okay, so he just wants more
Oh,
of those kind of things.
yeah,
Nice.
no, we'll
Yeah.
definitely keep an eye out for that type of thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
for a while, like Classic was really hot on Wowhead unless people were doing retail, but with the buffs, a lot of people are coming back to retail, so
Mm-hmm.
we're definitely trying to like go more in depth, or things that maybe weren't popular a few months ago are actually really popular now.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're always
Yeah,
trying
everyone's
to
wrapping up the
adapt our
different things.
strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or like you're more powerful now.
True.
Things
Yes.
are easier to do, so you're not
Mm-hmm.
really rating progression, but you're farming old stuff, so you care about that.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. All right. Well, that's a good wrap then. Maybe time
Yeah.
for a high five.
Yep. No cat. We were talking too many things. He's like, I'm impatient.
He's like, not
Uh,
not fast enough goodbyes. Oh my god. So
exactly.
typical humans.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm ready. You can
Um.
do the countdown.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, was I supposed to snap? I wasn't sure if you were going for the table.
Oh, I was doing the countdown.
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
could do a
Okay.
redo. I can hit the table this time. Okay.
It's okay. It was a delayed
All right.
snap. I mean, we could do it again
Yeah,
if you
it's
want.
fine. No, it's fine. We can adapt. Brightpod, this is why we need you. We're more organized with you.
Yes, Brightpaw would
Yeah.
have known. He would have done it
Yes.
great. He would have
Yes. He
perfect
would have
timing.
bopped his head against the mic.
Yeah, he would. Well, that's it for us, guys. We will
Yeah.
see you guys again, hopefully next week, Monday. Same time as always, just a new day.
Hmm.
Same time, same hosts, same content. No, actually, not the same. The new news. Whatever is the
Yeah.
new news between now and then will be the content.
Yeah. It's actually nice to discuss some BFA things as opposed to just,
Yeah.
Shadowlands.
And you can expect a lot more of sort of completionist kind of things that we'll be touching as well as the expansion comes closer and closer
Hmm.
to the end, including things to look out for that will be going away once, pre-patch hits or once Shadowlands
Yeah,
hits.
definitely.
Those are the kind of
Yeah.
things that we will be covering in the future.
Yeah.
Goodbye, everyone, and see you
Bye.
next time.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.